Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're cutting through some of the noise to explore something really crucial: national security.
Definitely.
With everything from cyber threats to transnational terrorism, these things just don't respect borders anymore, do they?
Not at all. And that makes agile, really effective intelligence absolutely vital for any country trying to navigate this, well, increasingly complex global landscape.
Right. And understanding how the top intelligence agencies work, their principles, their operations, it's not just for specialists anymore, is it? It's key to grasping the sort of unseen forces shaping things for all of us.
Absolutely. You really need to understand the why behind their actions.
So that's our mission today. We're going to take a comprehensive look at two really formidable players: Israel's Mossad and India's research and analysis wing, RAW.
Two fascinating case studies.
Exactly. And we want to go beyond just the headlines,
Yes.
get into their founding ideas, their big wins, and yeah, their significant failures too. The goal is to pull out some strategic, some doctrinal lessons.
And what's really interesting, I think, is that even though Israel and India have very different contexts, politically, geographically,
Really different.
the insights on things like proactive strategy, the role of human intelligence, how these organizations actually function or don't function, sometimes those lessons are pretty universal.
Okay, so let's kick things off with Mossad. You called it a proactive powerhouse. It was set up back in 1949. What were the circumstances then? How did that shape its core mission?
Well, it's crucial to understand Mossad wasn't just, another government department created out of bureaucracy. It came from what they called an urgent necessity.
Urgent necessity.
Yeah, stemming directly from the historical vulnerability of Jewish people, the pogroms, the violence, and then the very precarious situation of the new state of Israel surrounded by hostile neighbors. That context forged a really powerful, almost existential mandate. You had Reuven Shiloah, its first director, with his principle, know your enemy. But Mossad's job went beyond just Israel's borders. It was, and still is, about ensuring the security of Jewish people worldwide.
Ah, so a global mandate from the start.
Precisely, and that's the foundation of its fundamentally proactive and preemptive doctrine. The idea is to neutralize threats and exert influence before they become an immediate danger to Israel itself.
Proactive and preemptive. Born from survival instincts, essentially. So how does that translate operationally? How much relies on human intelligence? Human.
Oh, HUMINT is absolutely central. Their biggest division, SOMIT, is all about case officers, katsas, running espionage ops overseas. That's the backbone.
Right.
Now, they definitely use signals, intelligence, SIGINT, and cyber tools too, but it's often that human element, that agent on the ground, that delivers the really critical breakthroughs.
Okay, that structure sounds somewhat familiar, but there's this unique thing about Mossad, the Psionim network.
Yeah.
What exactly is that? These unpaid helpers? How do they work?
The Psionim, yes. They're, well, quite remarkable. These are unpaid Jewish civilians, helpers, living in countries all around the world. They provide invaluable logistical support.
Logistical support, like...
Think about needing a safe house quickly. Or maybe a car that isn't easily traceable, without all the usual paperwork. A Psionim might quietly arrange that.
Wow. And they do this unpaid. What's the motivation?
It's not about money. Sources say it stems from a profound sense of devotion, a feeling of it being a national vocation tied into shared cultural identity with Israel.
So it's driven by identity and purpose.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And this volunteer network acts as an incredible force multiplier.
A force multiplier. I like that term.
It lets Mossad run these, vast operations worldwide, but on a relatively slim budget and with fewer formal agents than you might expect, all while keeping a lower profile. It's a unique way to leverage diaspora connections, giving them this huge operational footprint.
That's fascinating. Okay, let's look at this doctrine in action. You mentioned three key operations. Let's start with Operation Finale in 1960, the capture of Adolf Eichmann in Argentina. What does that tell us?
Operation Finale, yeah. It's really a masterclass in patient, meticulous, global human. Took years.
How did it start?
It started with a tip, actually, from a Holocaust survivor whose daughter was dating Eichmann's son. Then came years of painstaking work, cross-referencing details. A field agent finally confirmed his identity by spotting him giving flowers to his wife on what they figured out was their wedding anniversary. Chilling detail, right?
Incredible. And the capture itself?
Audacious. They snatched him, held him, then spirited him out of Argentina on a covert flight during the country's Independence Day celebrations. It just shows this incredible persistence fueled by, a deep moral drive reaching across continents and decades. It's about the long game in intelligence.
The long game indeed. Okay, next. Operation Wrath of God. This is the long campaign, 1972 to 94, targeting those behind the Munich Olympics massacre. What's the key takeaway there?
Wrath of God is controversial, obviously, but it clearly showed a doctrine of targeted killing. Not just revenge, but a sustained multi-decade effort to neutralize specific threats and, frankly, instill fear.
A message, basically.
A very clear message. Nowhere is safe. What's also interesting and often missed is the vital role that some European intelligence services apparently played feeding Mossad information. It hints at this complex, often hidden web of international cooperation.
Even for agencies known for going it alone.
Right. Even they often rely on partnerships behind the scenes.
And the third one, Operation Entebbe, 1976. The hostage rescue in Uganda, often called a textbook case of interagency coordination.
Absolutely textbook. But the crucial point here is that the military raid's success was completely dependent on Mossad's intelligence.
How so?
They provided incredibly detailed information. The layout of the airport terminal, the exact number of hijackers, even what President Idi Amin's car looked like, which the Israeli commandos actually used to create a diversion upon arrival.
So the intel allowed for precision planning and execution.
Exactly. It enabled the military to rehearse the assault down to the minute details and pull off this incredibly daring, rapid rescue. It shows how top-tier intelligence doesn't just inform, it enables decisive action. It turns a crisis you're reacting to into a proactive success.
Okay, so we've seen Mossad as this proactive, often highly effective force. But as you said, no agency is perfect. Let's talk about the other side, the vulnerabilities, the failures. Because the learnings there are just as important, right?
Absolutely critical. You know, reputation aside, Mossad is not infallible. They've made significant mistakes, sometimes with huge blowback.
Like the Lillehammer affair in '73.
Precisely, a terrible case of mistaken identity. They assassinated a Moroccan waiter in Norway, thinking he was the Munich massacre planner Ali Hassan Salameh. The Mossad team got caught in prison. A major embarrassment and operational failure.
And then there was the Khaled Mashal attempt in '97 in Jordan.
Another huge blunder. 2 agents were caught after trying to poison the Hamas leader. It caused a massive diplomatic crisis. King Hussein of Jordan was furious, demanded the antidote, even threatened the peace treaty.
So Israel had to back down.
They had to. They provided the antidote, released Sheikh Ahmed Yassin and dozens of other Palestinian prisoners. It shows how operational failures can have immense, unforeseen political and reputational costs. You're forced into making concessions you never wanted to make.
But maybe the most significant, most recent failure we need to unpack is October 7th, 2023, the Hamas attack, widely called a colossal security failure.
Was it about collecting intelligence, or was it something else? Analysis? Foresight?
Sources overwhelmingly point to a failure of analysis and strategic foresight, not primarily collection. There seems to have been plenty of raw intelligence, actually.
So what went wrong?
It looks like a case of a deeply flawed conception, a pervasive cognitive bias within the Israeli security establishment that Hamas was deterred, that they were more interested in governing Gaza than in large-scale conflict.
Wishful thinking, almost. Essentially, yes. This mindset led them to dismiss clear warnings. Get this. Detailed Hamas battle plans were apparently known as far back as 2018 and again in 2022. But they were dismissed, deemed unrealistic, unfeasible.
So a failure to imagine the enemy could actually do what they said they planned to do. Classic mirror imaging.
It certainly looks like a classic case of mirror imaging, maybe some groupthink too. Misreading the adversary's fundamental intent because you're viewing them through your own rational framework, perhaps.
And technology played a role in this failure, too, and over-reliance.
Yes, that's another critical aspect. There was immense faith placed in the high-tech border barrier with Gaza. It was seen almost as an impenetrable substitute for needing robust humans inside Gaza.
Creating a false sense of security.
Exactly. It neglected the human element, the ideological drive on the other side. The lesson here is stark. Technology is a tool, an important one, but it's only as good as the human judgment and the organizational structure using it. It can't replace nuanced understanding.
And it wasn't just one single cause, was it? Reports mentioned an accumulation of several problems, including bureaucratic issues like stovepiping and rigid organizational barriers.
That's right. Information wasn't shared effectively between different units or agencies. Stovepiping, where information stays locked within one silo, prevented the crucial dots of intelligence from being connected into a coherent warning. It's a systemic breakdown.
So even with sophisticated collection, if the organization can't synthesize the information, it's useless.
Or worse than useless, it creates that false sense of security we talked about. Organizational culture can absolutely cripple capability.
These are incredibly powerful lessons.
Yeah.
Okay, let's pivot now to India's research and analysis wing, RAW. Like Mossad, its origins lie in failure, right? The intelligence gaps in the 62 war with China and the 65 war with Pakistan.
Exactly. Those conflicts really highlighted that India's main agency at the time, the Intelligence Bureau, or IB, was primarily focused domestically and just wasn't set up for foreign intelligence gathering.
So RAW was created in 1968 to fill that gap.
Precisely. Its primary mission became foreign intelligence, keeping tabs on the political and military activities of India's neighbors, especially Pakistan and China. It's about protecting India's interests in a very volatile neighborhood.
And RAW has had its share of major successes. The 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War is often cited.
Absolutely instrumental there, providing intelligence that was crucial for the Indian military campaign, which ultimately led to the creation of Bangladesh.
Any others that stand out?
Well, there's Operation Meghdoot in the 80s, securing the Siachen Glacier. Raw's intel reportedly allowed Indian forces to preempt Pakistani moves and occupy key positions. And Operation Chanakya, dealing with separatist groups in Kashmir, is another example often mentioned, showing its role blending external intel with internal security impact.
So clear capabilities. But RAW, like Mossad, faces its own systemic hurdles. That silo mentality you mentioned, it came up after the 1999 Kargil War too, didn't it?
It did. The Kargil Review Commission pointed specifically to a lack of effective interagency coordination and information sharing. It meant different agencies might have had pieces of the puzzle, but they weren't put together. It leads to duplication of effort, slow response, real blind spots.
Echoes of October 7th again, in a different context.
It's a recurring theme in intelligence failures worldwide, unfortunately. Information hoarding, poor communication between agencies. It can be disastrous.
And what about people? Personnel issues.
That's another challenge often highlighted for RAW. Reports mention a chronic shortage of specialized personnel, difficulties in recruiting and retaining people with key skills, like language specialists or deep technical experts.
I remember reading a recent report, maybe 2024, about tech-savvy staff leaving for the private sector.
Yes, significant attrition. That's a huge strategic vulnerability in today's tech-driven world. And it perhaps points to another difference. Historically, major reforms in Indian intelligence seem to often come after a failure, suggesting a more reactive culture compared to Mossad's proactive founding principle.
Reactive versus proactive, okay. But India has been investing in modernization, hasn't it? What about things like NTRO and NAGRI?
Yes, significant investments. The National Technical Research Organization, NTRO, was set up as a sort of super feeder agency for tech intelligence satellites, cyber, internet monitoring. And NatGRI, the National Intelligence Grid, is envisioned as this huge master database to connect data from various agencies.
Sounds good on paper, but
But the critical issue, echoing our earlier discussion, is culture. There were media reports, for instance, that initially some agencies, reportedly including RAW and the IB, were hesitant, even refused to share all their data with NTRO.
so even with the new tech, the old silo mentality can persist and undermine the whole point.
Precisely. It brings us back to that core lesson. Technology alone doesn't solve deep-seated organizational or cultural problems. You need the systems, yes, but you absolutely need the willingness and the mechanisms to actually use them collaboratively.
The human and organizational framework is key.
It's everything. Otherwise, the best tech just gathers digital dust.
Okay, this brings us perfectly to our final segment, comparing these two agencies and drawing out strategic lessons, particularly for India. Structurally, there's a similarity, right? Both directors report directly to the Prime Minister.
Yes, that direct line gives both agencies significant autonomy and political clout. But, as we've discussed, the fundamental doctrine diverges sharply. Mossad's embedded proactive, preemptive culture versus RAW's historically more reactive stance. That shapes everything.
So pulling it all together, what are the key actionable recommendations for India? Not copying Mossad, obviously, but learning.
Based on the analysis, several key areas emerge. First, really embedding a proactive strategic culture, moving away from just reacting to crises towards anticipating and neutralizing threats before they fully emerge. That's a deep mindset shift.
Makes sense. What else?
Second, professionalizing human even further, tackling those recruitment and retention issues head on, especially for specialized skills. You need that dedicated, highly skilled cadre of intelligence professionals, investing in people.
And the coordination piece, breaking down silos.
Absolutely crucial. Making NTRO and NACHIARI fully operational isn't just about plugging them in, it's about changing the culture to ensure information flows freely and is synthesized effectively, actively dismantling those bureaucratic barriers, fostering genuine collaboration.
Okay, and the last point was about the diaspora. That sounded intriguing.
Yes, strategically harnessing the diaspora. This isn't about replicating the Cyanim model, which has its own specific context. It's about India developing its own ethically sound framework to leverage the unique insights, connections, and goodwill within its vast global diaspora. Doing it in a way that fits India's democratic values, it's a potentially huge untapped asset if done right.
Wow, okay. So quite a deep dive today. We've really explored that critical balance between human insight and technology, the power of being proactive versus reactive, and how vital organizational culture is, how it can enable or totally cripple an intelligence agency.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the real strength isn't just collecting data, it's having the wisdom to interpret it correctly, the courage to act on it, sometimes preemptively, and the organizational agility to overcome those internal hurdles that can stop good intelligence from becoming effective action.
So maybe final thought for everyone listening, reflecting on all this. What does it mean for you to be truly well-informed in your own world, whether it's professional or personal? How could you apply some of these ideas, thinking proactively, breaking down your own silos, leveraging your networks in your own context?
That's a great question to ponder.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.